Hello there, friends. So I got a comment the other day about somebody asking about corners. So I thought, oh, well, that'd be a pretty good idea to make a video about how to sew corners in different styles of corners. So I was actually traveling last week, so I didn't have a customer scheduled. So this is like probably the first time in 5 years that I've made a video where it wasn't actually a customer's project. So I'm just going to be cutting up some material and making corners. So here we go. So I'm using high visible material here so that way you guys can see clearly. And I'm using black thread against this light color. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to start a literal corner. So we're going to take the two pieces of material. I'm going to put them face to face like that. Line up the edges. And where I usually start is I start about 3/8 of an inch from this edge, which is called the sewing allowance, which I didn't know that's what it was called until I started making videos and people started telling me that's what it was called. So let's go ahead and lock the stitch. We'll follow that all the way down. You can see that I use the guide for me is about 1/8 of an inch showing of the material on the side of my foot here, but that might be different for you. But that's what I use as my guide. I'm not really even looking at my needle here. I'm looking at the edge of the material, really. Okay, so I'm going to sew it all the way down. And I'm going to see the corner right here. So I'm going to sew it all the way down to about 3/8 of an inch. So I got about another 2 more stitches. I can just rotate it by hand. Like that. Sink the needle into the material. So when you do that, you can really just rotate it around. Look at that. So what I'm going to do is then, for this sharp of a corner, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little relief cut right there. And that'll help it make that real sharp corner. See how it gave a relief right there? Okay, so we're just going to rotate it. We're going to continue our stitch. Just like that. And really, that's all there is to it. That's our first example of a corner. So that's what we sewed right there. You might see something like this on some kind of like a cushion for a couch or a pillow or something really simple like that. Okay, now let's move on to our next one. If you find value in my upholstery tutorials, now is an easier way to contribute to my YouTube channel. Buy a coffee by scanning this QR code now. Thank you. We'll just start it the same way. All of these are actually going to all be starting the same way, and you're going to notice a pattern that they're all similar to each other. They really are. And you're going to see at the end of this here, if you stick around long enough, you're going to see that this is not rocket science, as all the other YouTubers that have sewing tutorials like me, how they approach things. If you know me, you know that I approach things very simply, and I don't make things very complicated. Okay, well, what? We just did it twice? We did the same thing again? Yeah, we did. We just made 2 of these, right? Okay, but what I'm going to do with this one now is I'm going to demonstrate a different style. So I'm going to demonstrate a top stitch. Okay, so I've seen a lot of guys, they'll start their top stitch right here. So what they'll do is they'll start stitching and then they'll do a lock stitch right here. Okay, and then sometimes when you have another, sew something else together like this, I've seen it where you actually see the lock stitch right here. It's not hidden and it's visible and it's showing. And if you've been around long enough, you've probably seen that too. You might even know who's done that before. So this is the way I do it. You can see here where I started the stitch along the edge right there before I get to that seam. Okay, so I'm just going to rotate it by hand. One rotation, land that needle right there where I want it. And then we're going to start a top stitch. So this, what makes this one here a little different is because it's really a corner. A little tougher to do than a soft corner. And I'm going to show you one of those later. So, looks like I need maybe 2 stitch right there. Okay, I think I can go ahead and rotate it now. Now let's continue our top stitch. I've seen this on furniture. So this is a literal corner here, is what I'm calling it. Maybe you have another name for it. But this is a top stitch on a literal corner. Next, let's say that we have a corner that is a rounded corner. So let's say that there's a corner like that, a rounded corner. So let's start that. So it's the same way. We'll start it the same exact way. Okay, so now this one here, it's similar to what we did before, but now we have a rounded corner. So what that means is we need to follow that rounded edge. And you know, some of you guys, I'm going to give you a technique number right now, and this is a very low technique number. And I'll even explain why. So what this is technique number 32. So what technique number 32 is when you're sewing, you have your accelerator on your foot, right? Because you press down on it. A lot of people, they think that when you press down on the accelerator like you do on your car, you start going, right? You get the momentum up in your car to get to 20, 30, 40, 50 miles an hour. Okay, so the accelerator on a sewing machine here is not the same as an accelerator on the car. Okay, so I never really even thought about this until about 40 years after doing this. Never even thought about it. But one day, I looked down at my foot as I was sewing, and I noticed that instead of pressing down on the accelerator, and what I was doing is I was pumping it like this. I was pumping the accelerator. And that's how I can get the needle to go as fast or as slow as I want. Because a lot of people, I heard that when they get on the sewing machine for the first time, they treat it like it's an accelerator on a car. So they press down on it and it goes brrr, brrr, and they don't understand why it's so fast. How do you like my sound effects? Anyway, let's just go ahead and continue on. Lock our stitch. Okay. Now, what do we have? Let's take a look. Always inspect your work. Okay, now, we have a rounded corner. So because all this material in the back here is loose, you can see that this looks kind of messy right there. So you could actually leave it like that because it'll smooth out like this once it's installed on a cover, and you turn the welt, or they call it the welt. You turn it the same direction like that, and it'll look pretty good. Or you could do like we did earlier. Do a top stitch. So what I do when I do a top stitch is this edge of the material that I'm looking at right here. That's what I'm using as my guide. I usually align it with one of these areas here on the foot. And that's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at the needle. And I think a lot of people, what they do is they look at the needle instead of looking at the edge. Is that what you do? If that's what you do, put it in comments. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and just follow all the way through. So actually right here, I even put a little blue mark on my foot that I use as my guide. As you notice, I don't have any attachments on my sewing machine that I use as guides. I never have. That's just the way I started out so long ago. And never adapted myself to need that type of a crutch. So you could do yourself a top stitch. And that cleans it up really nice. Okay. So, you know, the French stitch purists, I will call them, and I've gotten comments from plenty of those people, you might even know who you are, where they say that for a French stitch you have to use a tape. You must use tape behind a French stitch. So what I am always wondering is because they say it adds strength to the stitch. So my argument is, okay, so if I did a single stitch like this, and that's the way it's always going to be, there's no other stitch to it, why is it necessary that I have to put a tape on the back for extra strength for that one stitch? Why is this style of a stitch different from the French stitch? Just gets curiouser and curiouser. So what we will do, since we're talking about that, is I'm going to go ahead. Let's do the curve here. Let's do another curve. Okay, matter of fact, let's do a softer curve. Let's do a larger radius. Okay, so we have a larger radius curve here. Let's go ahead and start this one. And if you notice, we always start the same. It never changes. It's not rocket science. Okay, so we'll go ahead and sew this one. And we'll follow all the way through. But guess what? We're not going to do a French stitch here. We're going to do what I started calling a Texas stitch. Because people were telling me that after almost 50 years of doing this, that I am not making a French stitch because I didn't put the tape on the back. So I said, okay. Well, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to call it a freedom stitch. Then somebody got offended at the name freedom stitch. So I said, okay, well, I can't call it a French stitch because they're telling me it's not a French stitch. And I can't call it a freedom stitch. So I'll call it a Texas stitch. Who can argue with that? So let's go ahead. So what you can see is what I'm doing is I'm spreading the back here, because I'm going to be putting a stitch on both sides of this. Both sides. Okay, the other thing that people do is they will just continue and they'll only stitch to here and come off. Okay, which is fine. Then you got to start it over again here. Or I've even seen people, they'll lock the stitch or whatever. But I'm going to show you what I do. Technique number 192. What that is I just turn it just like that, 90 degrees. I go 2 stitches, 1, 2, rotate, and then continue my stitch, my top stitch right there. Look at that. Isn't that something? That's another one for you guys. So just continue the top stitch on both sides. And then what I do to finish that off, instead of locking the stitch like that, look what I did. I just rotated it again, go down the edge. I have a video. It's called Never Lock a Top Stitch, or Never Lock a French Stitch. So anyway, there we go. It's not real pretty, but we're just doing demonstration purposes here. So that's the top stitch on both sides. You can see it right there. Okay, so now, just for the sake of argument, let's make a real French stitch as defined by some of my other commenters. So what we will do is we will do a stitch like this. Well, I hope you enjoy my instructional videos, because I hope that people are learning. Okay, so now we'll go ahead. Oh, you know what I forgot? I forgot to put tape on the back. They told me I have to put tape. So let's see. I never do this, so bear with me. Okay. I guess that's how it's done. Okay, they always say you gotta put tape on the back. Okay, are you guys laughing yet? Okay, I can kind of hear you laughing out there. Let's see. Oh, geez. Okay, let me try this. So, okay, if I put the tape like this. Okay, just comment if you think I'm doing this wrong. Educate me. Okay, let's see. Man. I think I like the French stitch better. It's easier and faster. But they say I gotta use tape. I know. Okay, enough of that. I know what you guys are talking about. So they say you gotta put something on the back I still don't know how this is done. You know, I've never done it this way. For 50 years, I've done my Texas stitch and calling it a French stitch, but apparently I was doing it wrong. Okay, let's see. This is unrehearsed, guys. As you know, I don't do anything by script. So, let's check this out. Okay. 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 Let's see. That's one side. Now let's do the other side. Ooh, the concentration. Okay. Let's try that. Okay, I got the tape on the back. Got the top stitch on the front. There's a lot of bulk there. Okay, let's see. Well, this is the one with the tape. This is one without the tape. Okay, so now they're saying that the tape makes it stronger, which means I guess it would because you're putting more material there. But on the other hand, if you have your tension right on your sewing machine, this one here is nice and tight too. Okay, just as this one here is. You know, we only sewed this one time, right? There's no tape on the back. So as long as your tension is right on your machine, it'll be nice and tight. Just like this one. Both of these. Okay, so, what are the advantages here? Maybe you guys can set me straight in comments. What makes this one better than this one or this one? Because you have the tape in the back. So I think what I'm wondering is, if they say that it has to have the tape in the back to make it stronger, wouldn't that mean that every single stitch you ever did, 100% of the time, needs some kind of a backing, a tape backing, to make it stronger? Because this is so weak? Well, so now let's make one with a welt. So guess what? When I thought I wasn't going to be sewing anymore, I sold all my welts. So all my welt is gone. So I'm going to sew a pretend welt here. So there's no welt insert. Look at that. It's just material. So this is our pretend welt. Can't believe it's gone. Okay, so then what we will do is we will sew our pretend welt. It looks like I'm going to run out of bobbin. Yeah. Oh yeah, look at that. It was getting a little curly. It's all completely gone. Okay. Sometimes we do run out of welt, or run out of bobbin. Okay, let's start a new one. Okay. Good thing I didn't run out while I was sewing. Okay, now let's go ahead and put our welt, our pretend welt. Okay. You can see it's quite long here. I'm just going to trim it off just to make it look easier for us. Okay. There we go. Now we'll sew on our skirt. I'll start on this side. Okay. That's our pretend welt. So this is a corner with a welt. There's no bulb in there, as you know. That's why it looks the way it does. But you get the idea. So let's review these again. So this is just a simple seam, corner seam, like you'd probably see on patio furniture or other things. Just like that. It's a literal corner. The second example that we did was the same corner, but with the top stitch. You can see how it cleaned things up quite a bit. Okay, that's 2. 3, okay, we did the soft corner with actually we did the first, right? Soft corner with no top stitch. Then we did the top stitch. That cleans it up real nice. Okay. Then we did what I'm calling the French stitch. So it's a double top stitch. Okay, I guess that's the technical term. Double top stitch. Then this is supposed to be the correct definition of a French stitch because it has tape in the back. Okay. I don't know, I'm still looking at this. Ah. 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 Well, I'm not arguing with myself because I know which one I like better. Then we have the welt corner. The welt here. So you got the 2 layers with the welt on the middle right there. So tell me what you think. Did you learn something today? I hope so. Let me know in comments. Well, look at all these here. Lots and lots of corners and corners. Oh, and more corners and dropping corners. So, I'm sure that there's probably at least one style that I forgot. You know, I'm me and my half brain, right? So, anyway, until next time, we'll see ya. If you like this video, you'll really like the next one.